Here I have my 3 examples of using flaky pastry, which I made, vol au vents, which are flaky pastry cases, which are filled with a chicken filling, cream horns, which are hollow pastry shapes, which are filled with jam and cream, and then sausage rolls, which are baked with pork sausage meat in them and served either as a meal or as a cocktail dish. I'm going to illustrate how to make flaky pastry. This pastry is made only with butter, because butter hardens so quickly and allows the pastry to puff in layers, and it is a rather protracted and long drawn out process. In my bowl I have sifted flour and salt, and here I have my butter, which I'm going to divide into quarters. That gives me 4 pieces of butter that are just about equal. The first quarter I'm going to put into my flour, and I'm going to work the butter into the flour using a pastry cutter. The pastry cutter is a set of wires attached to a handle, and it cuts the butter into smallish pieces and mixes it with the flour. The texture of the flour and the butter is not as fine as the texture would be if you were rubbing it in by hand. I'm going to remove the last of the mixture from the pastry cutter. And I am going to make my pastry using ice cold water with a little bit of lemon juice in it. The lemon juice is used to counteract the high amount of butter that there is in the pastry. It prevents the pastry from tasting too oily. Mix it with a knife. Don't touch it with your hands, as the ideal pastry is kept as cold as possible. Add the water little by little so that you don't make your pastry too wet. You can use the knife to press the pastry together. I can feel that the pastry needs just one small amount of water added to it. This pastry, once it's been made, must now go into the refrigerator for 10 to 15 minutes to become quite cold again. Once the beginnings of the flaky pastry have been in the refrigerator for 10 to 15 minutes, the pastry, which has a quarter of the butter blended into it, is rolled out. Remember, when you are rolling, you do not roll backwards and forwards. You always lift the rolling pin up and you quarter turn the pastry. You change the shape of the pastry by applying different amounts of pressure to your sides of your rolling pin. Roll the pastry out thin. And use 1/4 of the butter. Cut the butter, which is ice cold, into small squares and dot these squares over 2/3 of the surface of the pastry. This is time-consuming, but worth it in the end. Try not to touch the butter with your hands, as this heats it up and it does not make effective layers. Spread the butter as evenly as you can. Fold the 1/3 of the pastry that has no butter on it over, and then fold the second third over, and fold the pastry in thirds again. And the pastry with the other 2 sections of the butter goes back into the refrigerator for 15 minutes. This whole process of rolling out, dotting with butter, folding and chilling is repeated twice more before the pastry can be used in any dish. Here I have flaky pastry which I have prepared. I have cut it down the center so that you can see the layers of pastry and butter as visible as the pastry has been folded over and over again. I'm going to roll the pastry out and show you various ways of making or using flaky pastry for various dishes. I have sprinkled flour on my work surface, and I'm going to press the pastry down, either with a rolling pin or with your knuckles, just to make it easier to handle. And I'm going to roll it out once again using the method. If the pastry sticks to your rolling pin, just put flour on your rolling pin. This pastry is a long enough strip, so I'm going to quarter turn it. And I'm going to roll it a little bit wider. Make quite sure that the pastry can move at all times, indicating that it has not stuck to the work surface. That is thin enough. The first use for flaky pastry is making vol au vent. These are small, savory tartlets which you can serve either as a main meal or as a cocktail snack. Now, here is a very clever vol au vent cutter, because it cuts the outer circle of the vol au vent and it also cuts the center of the vol au vent out. So I'm going to use that. Or if you are unable to get one of those cutters, we use an ordinary biscuit cutter. And we cut out an equal number of whole bases as tops with holes in them. If you don't have a special cutter, you can take the lid off a vanilla bottle and remove the center of the vol au vent. Now the bases are glazed. And the tops are placed on them. They're glazed once more so that they turn an attractive golden brown, and they are placed on a greased baking tray. The lids, as they are called, are also glazed and baked at the same time, and they are used as garnishing. These are baked at 220 for about 10 minutes until they are puffed to twice their size and they have become golden brown. I have rolled another piece of flaky pastry out, and I'm going to demonstrate using the flaky pastry to make cream horns. I'm going to cut strips of pastry about 2 centimeters wide. If the knife is sticking, just put the blade into flour, make it easier. These are metal cream horn shapes, and I'm going to take the pastry and glaze it so that it will stick together. And wind it round the cream horn shape, making quite sure that the pastry overlaps. As soon as you have to make a join, you wet the pastry again, and you start with the next strip until you reach the end of the cream horn shape. And then you place it on the baking tray. Start at the top and wind your pastry around so that the pastry overlaps. Remember always to wet the pastry with glaze. So that the layers will stick together. And place it in the pan. When you are ready to bake them, touch them with glaze along the top so that they have a brown, golden brown appearance. These also go into the oven on a high temperature, 220, for about 15 minutes. I'm going to use flaky pastry to make sausage rolls, homemade sausage rolls. I've rolled the pastry out. I have tried to keep it rectangular. It keeps you from having to waste large quantities of the pastry. Here I have pork sausage meat, which I have mixed with some seasoning, some tomato sauce and some Worcester sauce, and I am going to take half of this mixture and I'm going to roll it into a sausage shape. I'm going to place it down the pastry, cut the end off so that it fits, glaze the edge of the pastry, and fold it over and press the edge down. I'm going to take a knife and cut it off. And take a fork and just press the two pieces of pastry together. I'm going to glaze the whole length of the strip of sausage roll. And I'm going to cut the sausage rolls into the sizes that I wish. For cocktail sausage rolls, you cut them into bite-sized pieces. For larger sausage rolls, slightly larger pieces. So you can control the sizes that you wish your sausage rolls to be. The sausage rolls go into the oven for at least 20 minutes so that the pork is very well cooked. These vol au vents have risen very well, but the lower layer also rises, and sometimes you find that the hollow is not deep enough, so you take a sharp knife and you literally dig out the central pastry to make a deep hole, which you then fill with a chicken and mushroom filling. You place a little hat on the vol au vent and you serve it like that. Here you find that the vol au vent has risen too much. You can cut the lower layer off and fill it with the chicken and mushroom filling. And once again, place a little top on it. Unfortunately, this vol au vent has risen so much it's fallen over. So once again, I'm going to break the lower section off so that it stands straight, and I'm going to fill it. The fillings don't necessarily have to be chicken. They can be cheese fillings, or you can make sweet vol au vents and fill them with jam and sweet cream. You can use tuna, mayonnaise to fill them. And there you have your vol au vents. The cream horn pastry has risen extensively, but what you have to do, and remember that these cream horns are hot, what you have to do is remove the center, and you then have a hollow pastry case which you allow to cool, and you fill it with jam and fresh cream.